Now, children, I know you're all disappointed today that you didn't get the funnies. So gather around. Here's Dick Tracy. Let's see what Dick Tracy is doing. Now, get this picture. Here is Wet Wash. The doors of the laundry wagon are open. He's leaning with his back toward the wagon, and he's counting his money. 2, 3, 4,000. Now he's getting into the hundreds. 600, 700, 800. And the picture shows a hand of Breathless. She's got hold of that iron pot. Remember the iron pot she took from the Van Hoosens? And crash! She crashes it on his head. Knocked out. Next picture we see Dick Tracy. You know, the fine type of Dick Tracy? He's been a detective so long. And he still has that slender form. Lou Valentine, why do our detectives get fat, I wonder? And say, children, what does it all mean? It means that dirty money never brings any luck. I want to warn the people of this city that we are in an extreme crisis. Anyone familiar with world conditions will know that the Nazi government is masterminding Japanese policy and the action taken by the Japanese government this afternoon. It was carrying out the now known Nazi technique of murder by surprise. So there is no doubt that the thugs and gangsters now controlling the Nazi government are responsible and have guided the Japanese government in the attack on American territory and the attack on the Philippine Islands. Therefore, I want to warn the people of this city and on the Atlantic coast that we must not and cannot feel secure or assured because we are on the Atlantic coast and the activities this afternoon have taken place in the Pacific. We must be prepared for anything at any time. As mayor of the city of New York and on my own responsibility, I have ordered all Japanese subjects to remain in their homes until their status is determined by our federal government. The officers of the Japanese Consulate General are now being protected by the police department until the status of the Japanese Consul General is determined by our federal government. He will be protected and escorted to and from his office. I have ordered on my own responsibility a Japanese club in this city to be closed, in keeping with my order that all Japanese subjects must remain in their homes until their status is determined and further orders issued. As mayor, I have been in communication and in touch with all the necessary federal agencies in this city. There is full and complete cooperation. I have reported the action taken by the city government to the governor of our state. I have been in communication and in touch with the authorities in Washington. I now want to appeal to the people of our city to be calm. There is no need of being excited or unduly alarmed. But I want to repeat what I said before, that we are not out of the danger zone by any means, and to be prepared to receive instructions and to cooperate at any time that instructions are given to the citizens of this city, and to cooperate with any plan that may be announced for their protection and the protection of their homes. As United States Director of Civilian Defense, I am communicating with all regional officers, instructing them to communicate with the governors of the states within their regions, and asking the governors, state and local councils to intensify the training of air raid wardens and auxiliary fire forces. More detailed instructions to the regional directors will follow. To all air raid wardens and auxiliary firemen now enrolled, I'm asking them to prepare to attend daily drills. It is necessary that we be on the alert at all times. My friends, we must toughen up. We have our homes and our lands to defend now. We must remain cool and yet determined. We are aware of the danger ahead, but unafraid. In the meantime, know that your city government is on the job and looking after your welfare and comfort and safety. Tomorrow, in all likelihood, we will know exactly where we stand when we hear from Washington. We can all rest assured that our national government will take the necessary steps to protect our land and our institutions. And we can also be certain that our great president at this very moment is taking just those necessary protective steps. So in the meantime, good night, and we will remain on the job. We have received notice from the United States government that all of the gasoline that the city will receive will be that amount necessary to meet the absolute essential. The present supply of gasoline in the city is very low. There was some notice of this fact this morning, and I therefore want to appeal as strongly as I can put it that owners of cars must not rush to gas stations to fill their tanks even though they may have coupons. Nothing could be more disastrous to the welfare, the health, and the safety of our city than that. And I might add that if we find that there has been a rush to gas stations by car owners who do not need their cars for essential purposes, they may find themselves with that gas in the tanks of their car, doing them no good and creating a great deal of danger to their city and their neighbors. I have already issued orders taking out of service all cars except the essential cars of the fire department, the police department, hospitals, and sanitation, and such essential inspectional service that is absolutely necessary. This will save us 1/2 of the amount of gas used by the fire department every day. And we will watch the situation and may be compelled to eliminate other services. Petroleum Administrator Ickes has issued a statement which covers the situation so well, I will read that part of it. I appeal to car owners to remember this fact, says Mr. Ickes. Keep your car in the garage unless you absolutely must use it. Eliminate immediately all driving for pleasure or for any borderline purpose. Above all else, don't start a run on your neighborhood dealer. The gasoline that he has in his tanks is gasoline put there to meet essential requirements, and he has all too little to meet even these needs. Now, the order the gasoline will be used will be 1, military demands, 2, public health and safety, 3, industry. As I've stated, the city will be compelled to operate, of course, its fire department, police department, sanitation department, hospitals, and transportation, which includes buses. Therefore, the appeal I want to make, and I'm sure that it will not be necessary to take any other action, but if I must take other action, I will invoke all the powers that I have under the state and federal laws to protect the health and safety of the people of this city. The appeal I make is no pleasure driving of any kind, nature, or description. And please, again, do not purchase any gasoline unless it is absolutely necessary to use your car for an essential purpose. Now, we will watch the situation very carefully. The reason for this, I think you will understand, is the great demand for gasoline for military purposes. You know the situation in various parts of the world, and you know the situation across the Atlantic. Watch your newspapers and follow the war news, and you will see how necessary it is to get gasoline to the men who are fighting these battles. I know that people of the city of New York always respond, and I know that they'll understand how critical the situation is. taking into consideration the reduced amount for essential purposes, we have but a few days' supply in this area. Now, if we're careful, we will not be compelled to go to such an extent as to impair any of the essential services. And therefore, I appeal to the people for their full and complete cooperation. Thank you very much. I've asked for 5 minutes' time on your station because of an article appearing in this morning's press, headlined, "Forced Fare Rise by September the 10th, Feared Under State Laws." The article itself is a fair presentation of the laws upon which these fears are based by some. And my purpose today is to make it clear, because of the misapprehension that has been caused by this headline and article, and the many inquiries which I have received during the day, to say that under the law there is no such fear. I am not going to discuss at this time at all the merits or demerits of the fare issue. That should be left for another time. Perhaps this fear is based on a provision that was contained in the laws of 1924. The mandatory provisions to increase fares after 10 years from 1932 in the event that the revenue from the fare would not be sufficient to meet all operating, construction, and bond charges, was repealed. Everyone approves of the need of low-rent apartments for people of low-income groups. For many years in our city, there was considerable discussion for the construction of sanitary, cheerful, safe dwellings to take the place of the old-type fire-trap, disease-breeding tenement. The subject was discussed for years and years. But it was not until President Roosevelt took office and Bob Wagner introduced the federal housing bill, which became law, that low-cost apartments became available to thousands and thousands of families throughout the country. Williamsburg houses, Harlem River houses, Red Hook, Queensbridge, East River houses, and others, all these units housing thousands of families in our city in beautiful, cheerful, modern apartments at low rent were constructed under the Wagner law providing for federal subsidies. New York City was one of the first to attack the problem. Other cities were timid about it. The city put money into it, too. We were the first to construct low-cost housing projects. We had confidence. We had the courage to do it. We demonstrated to the country that low-cost housing, which had been only a subject of discussion in this country, was not only desirable, but highly successful and practical of operation. Later on, our state, through constitutional provision, provided for aid to low-cost housing. But Bob Wagner was one of the pioneers in this great humane work. As everyone knows, Senator Wagner has been a tower of strength in the Senate to President Roosevelt. He admires and respects our great president. In these trying days and in the difficult days that are coming, the President of the United States needs and should have the loyal support of the American Congress. If at any time in the history of our country there was need for teamwork between Congress and the President, it is right now. That is another reason why Senator Wagner, with his experience and his ability and his fine, splendid human touch, should continue in the United States Senate, representing not only the state of New York, but representing the hopes and aspirations of millions of working men and women throughout the country. I just cannot stress too strongly how important it is to our state, but to the country, to the oppressed people of the world, whose champion he has been for many years, that Senator Wagner should be re-elected this year. Every citizen in this state has a great duty to perform this election day. Everyone who is registered and is entitled to vote should not fail to do so on Tuesday, November the 7th. No matter what happens, it is the duty of every citizen to go to the polling places as early as possible and to stay right there until he has the opportunity of casting his ballot. Naturally, as I see it, this duty is only completed and rendered in the best interest of the country by casting your vote for President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Robert F. Wagner for the United States Senate. There's another reason, too. I wonder if you've thought of it. You know that regardless of size or population, every state has but 2 senators in the United States Senate. We are represented by population in the House of Representatives, but in the Senate, all states are equal. Don't you see how important it is to you and to me to have Senator Wagner there? For he is able to hold his own, and he is able to protect our interests and to work for the kind of legislation that we want. So don't you see, we must re-elect Senator Wagner in order that the state of New York will continue to have 2 senators in Washington. My fellow New Yorkers, the one dominant thought in our minds is that shared by 130 million Americans in our country and hundreds of millions of men and women throughout the world. The greatest casualty of the entire world is now suffered by all the people of the world. The shock is so great that under ordinary conditions it would be exceedingly difficult to absorb. But we must carry on because of him whose death the entire world mourns. Here in this gathering, in not a very large room, a number of New Yorkers have gathered. We all came in so cheerful and happy. A citation was to be awarded to our own broadcasting station, WNYC. Here were men of different ancestry, of different religious faith, of different political beliefs, Yet, all now in great sorrow. We've all seemed to have been brought closer together. Mr. Gardner Osborne, whom you've just heard, Judge Murray Hulbert of the Federal Court, Mr. John W. Finger, and Mr. William Van White, a nephew of one of my predecessors, Mr. William S. Bennett, President of the Empire State Chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, Borough President Edgar Nathan, who in his own right belongs to the Sons of the American Revolution. These distinguished gentlemen, these Americans, long line of ancestry, these sons of the Mayflower and the Half Moon, were to confer a citation on WNYC, directed by Morris Novick and the present mayor, the sons of the steerage. It's no wonder that we have been so affected. This gathering here is so typical of American unity. It's so typical of what our country stands for. And my friends, I've talked to you so often, and under difficult conditions. This is the most difficult task I have ever had. It means so much to you and to me. It means so much to people that you and I will never hear from, will never know. People who have been suffering for years, for generations, who had looked forward to this man as their hope. Not hope for them, because they had lost everything. Perhaps not hope for any of their own, of their age, but hope for their children and their grandchildren. But we must buck up. I revert back to the people of my ancient ancestry. And we must face it as Romans. Our leader has died, but he lives on. His inspiration is with us. His leadership is with us. An additional duty and responsibility has now been thrust upon every American, no matter how humble. Responsibility and a duty to carry on as he would have us carry on, to insist that his ideals may be translated into reality and into everyday life. A better world for all. Economic security for the impoverished people of impoverished countries of this world. For permanent peace, my friends, this just could not have happened. There must be some reason for it all. Is it for the inspiration that we have followed for nearly 2,000 years? Is it that this sorrow must emphasize into us that responsibility and that unselfishness so necessary to bring about a happier world, to abolish forever cruelty, the brutality of war? It makes us feel all so humble at this time. And yet it presses down hard for an additional responsibility to unite. To unite as a great people. To unite as a great democracy. Franklin D. Roosevelt is not dead. His ideals live. That pattern is so definite, it is so permanent. We cannot escape it. We must not escape it. We do not want to avoid it. We will carry on. Centuries and centuries from now, as long as history is recorded, people will know Franklin D. Roosevelt loved humanity. I call upon all New Yorkers to carry on.